you'll attach the lifting straps to these lugs on top of the tank. You'll lift it up over prior to installing any of the cooling fins. This will be the first thing that you install. It installs on these 4 studs right here. There's one there, one in the back, another one here, another one there. Those are 15/16 inch nuts that go on there. You have a flat washer that goes on first, and then a lock washer, and then you have your nut. If you have some sort of impact that'll fit in this spot, you can use it, or you can just use a crescent wrench or ratchet, solely dependent upon the tools that you have at your disposal. Just put it on, tighten them down. Have this hard line that comes down right here, and it lines up with this valve. There will be a blank off plate on the front of this valve that you'll have to take off in order to put this tank up here and mate it up to the flange. Prior to taking that blank off of this valve, you'll want to look at the sight glass on either side. The covers just simply flip down, and then you can see the oil level for the tank inside this sight glass if there's oil up this high. As long as there's no oil inside this sight glass, then you can go ahead and take this blank off plate off so that you can get the tank flange installed on there. It lines up with these 4 holes here. It takes a 3/4 inch bolt, and it threads into this flange right here. You need to ensure that there is a rubber gasket of this type in between this flange and the flange on the valve. There is already a gasket in there, which is why this one's still here, but you need to ensure prior to installation that there is a gasket in there, which at the moment there is. I've got an impact with a 3/4 inch socket on there. Make sure it's lined up properly. Start the threads by hand. Because this is a threaded flange, if you just try and start it with something along the lines of an impact, instead of starting the threads by hand, you run the risk of cross-threading it and damaging the flange. It's ideal prior to tightening these 4 nuts down here. It's ideal to make sure that these 4 holes are lined up for this flange, and get the bolts started before you tighten these nuts all the way down. But that's the installation of the tank that goes on top of the substation. Okay, so when you're unpackaging the cooling fins to install them on the substation, There's going to be a total of 8 3/4 inch nut and bolts, 4 at each end. In between the flanges on each end there will be a rubber gasket. You'll need to loosen the 8 bolts and remove them. Keep track of the washer, or the rubber gasket. So you'll have the rubber gasket from each end. We've already attached a guide rope to the bottom of the cooling fin to control it as we lift it, because it is quite heavy. Remember that this part right here, this part that has the indent in the fins, it's different than the other end down there that doesn't have an indent. This goes at the bottom flange. This here is installed in the top flange. That's how you tell it apart and know which direction it needs to go. We'll attach our lifting straps to the lifting lug on the top of the fins. Make sure that it's good and secure. And bring the forklift operator in. Charles, come in, forward. Lean back. All right, go ahead and start coming up. While he's lifting up, we've got a man at the other end that's controlling the movement, keeping it from running into anything as you lift it up. It's going to drag a little bit as you're lifting it up, so you want to try and make sure that it's dragging across a smooth or even surface so you don't tear it up. Otherwise, you'll have to find some way of keeping it from dragging as you're lifting it. You've got enough personnel to have one on each side as you're turning to keep it from swinging freely. That's optimal. Also, because when you're coming in to install it, it's going to be quite close to the other fin. So, you know, the more control you have over it, the better off you are. Another thing that's very important is you only want one person at a time telling the forklift operator, crane operator, whatever it is you have it hanging off of. So it may be him at times, it may be me at times, but at no time are we both giving the lift operator a command. It just keeps from the confusion. Come on.
Just come in first. You're going to end up coming up. Come in first.
Keep your hands out from in between the two fins as it's coming in, because they are quite close. You can see how close they are right here. Very close together.
Easy.
Now that it's installed, we can take the guide. We can take the guide rope off. There's a total of 8 fins, 4 go on the one side, 4 go on the other side. It's the same procedure for each fin. All right, so after you get the fins installed and you want to open up the valves, there's a valve on top and there's a valve on the bottom, and that will allow cooling oil to circulate through the cooling fans. In order to do that, you need to take these 10mm bolts out of this cap. There's one 10mm bolt on each side of the cap. Take the cap off, and then you can just use a crescent wrench or something along those lines. Set it to the right size, and then you'll just turn it to open it, and then when you want to close it, you'll turn it to close it. Whenever it's in operation, you want to leave both the top and bottom valve open so that you'll have circulation through the cooling fans. If for some reason you need to remove the cooling fans, either to replace it or if you're breaking down the unit for shipping or something along those lines, you would need to close both the top and the bottom valves so that it would shut the cooling oil, shut it off to the fan. And then right here on the bottom, you would take this nut, you would remove it, and that would allow you to drain the oil out of the fan itself. And then with both of those valves closed, once all the oil drained out of the cooling fan, you could replace this drain nut and you could go ahead and remove the cooling fan at that time. And then once you remove the cooling fan, you would take this blank off panel right here and you would install it in the place of the cooling fan. That way the valve isn't exposed and you have some protection to keep the valve from being damaged while you have the fan, or while you have the cooling fins removed from the unit. Okay, once all the fins are installed, you have this brace that goes across. It goes across all 4 fins on the side. You've got one brace that goes across the top. There's another brace that goes along the bottom. You'll need 3/4 inch socket or wrench, or of course a crescent wrench or adjustable wrench of some sort, in order to install the hardware. And this is the hardware that we're installing here.
There's a washer.
Bolt and washer on the head side, and then a washer and a nylock nut on the back side. good idea to loose install all 4 bolts before tightening any of them up, so that you can make sure that all the holes line up and you can get all 4 sets of hardware through the bar without having to go back and loosen anything up after the fact. Now that all 4 are loose installed, he'll go through and tighten all 4 sets of the hardware to hold the bar in place. Now we got the bar for the bottom. We'll go ahead and install it as well.
Yeah, thanks.